Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, coast to coast. This is Star Wars The Old Republic News with Vorticai for the second week of April.
This week we get to know BioWare senior environment artist Robbie Lamb. He goes on to say how the game gets polished and how everyone at BioWare adds polish to the game. Everyone from the lowest coder to the house testers. It's his job to go back and rework assets, adjust lighting, and make sure the game feels true to the story. He goes on to talk about adding shadows and some other stuff no one really cares about. The meat of this week's update comes from the Q&A. Here, a lot of the big questions we've been asking on the forums over the last few weeks get finally answered. The first question comes from Fursion Touch. Will all classes have a main companion character or several different ones? Also, how important will companion characters be? BioWare answers with, as you level, you'll be able to meet and collect different companions of different archetypes. Each will have their own abilities, such as ranged, tanking, and picking up your ore as you walk along for no apparent reason. So basically, your companions just become dynamic hunter pets from WoW. Jor Flam asks, will bounty hunters be able to use their jetpacks in and out of combat? BioWare simply says no. Final Caliber asks a question we've all been wondering. Will we need to carry two sets of gear when we switch between chosen specs? Now, before this question was answered, I wasn't even sure if we'd be able to switch specs. We're not even sure at this point if switching specs will cost us in-game currency or if it will be like in WoW where you have a dual spec and can switch out at any time. BioWare simply answered yes. If a spec change is required for any given situation, we will most likely need a second set of gear. Say you need to switch to a healing spec, of course you're going to need your healing gear. If you need to switch to your tank spec, of course you're going to need your tanking gear. And a lot of people in the forums are currently upset about this because they want to only need to carry one set of gear, but I think that's kind of ridiculous given that today's MMO genre is completely driven by gear, so of course you're going to need multiple sets. I mean, I get why people want to have one set work for multiple specs, but in reality, if we don't have multiple gear sets and people are just all going to be rolling on the same gear, it's going to be a bunch of nerd rage and people crying constantly about how certain items got ninja, blah blah blah, same old crybaby bull. So I'm going to end this week's update with a question asked by Sanathor. Can you play the Inquisitor as a melee class as effectively as a Sith warrior? BioWare simply answers with yes. You'll be able to play both ranged and melee as a Sith Inquisitor or the Jedi Counselor. Depending on which advanced class you go with, one will be using a devastating double-bladed lightsaber for close range combat, uh, aided by force powers, or from range, mostly hurling lightning bolts. That's it for this week's weekend update for Star Wars The Old Republic with Vorticai. Make sure you subscribe and check back for future content where I will be showcasing Sith and Jedi lore, looking in depth into the history of Star Wars, as well as future playthroughs whenever the hell the beta comes out. And remember, live long and prosper.